Yo, what's happening with what's happening?
Welcome to What's Happening. I'm Brad.
I'm Fred.
So, shall we talk about what's happening? What's happening with you, bro?
I'm melting, but man, I just was down in Ohio this past weekend for my sister's graduation party. Um, my brother and my sister from North Carolina flew in. Well, not flew in, but drove in. So I ain't seen them in probably 8 years since my sister's wedding when we went to the Bahamas for her wedding. So, that was pretty dope getting to see them. Then, of course, get to work on my rental property. So got some dope progress made on that. So, just out here loving it, man, living life.
Dope. I am. I'm chilling, man. Today was a pretty smooth day. Just worked and did some prep for what we got going on for this, obviously, and you know, enjoying my last hour and a half of being 35.
Hey.
When the clock strikes midnight, you know what I'm saying, your boy gonna be a whole new age. I've been talking the last couple of weeks how I had the realization that, I'm technically closer to 50 than I am to 20, which is a wild concept. But, tomorrow the number changes. It makes that official. So yeah. It's all good though, man. I'm many didn't make it to this point. So, I'm blessed. I'm grateful, man. I'm ready to see what the future holds. Um, man, this is kind of crazy. I've been just had my face in this computer, um, for the last few hours doing different things, and right now it's Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
And I don't know the score. I don't know if it's a blowout. I don't know if we passed halftime yet. I don't know nothing right now. And this is not me. This is not who I am. So
usually you be all over. You treat this is like next to WrestleMania for you.
So. Next to NBA Finals is above WrestleMania.
Well, I don't know if that's hard for me to say for you. Sometimes your enthusiasm say different.
Nah, brother. The finals is So that's going on right now. Golden State's up. It's not quite halftime yet, so I'll be able to catch the end of the game by the time we're done recording this. But you know what I'm excited about, man? Potentially. This is Game 5. We're guaranteed to have the Game 6 because Game 6 because the series is 2-2. If Boston would have went up 3-1, we would have had to change our recording date.
you had to see something go down tonight,
but there's going to be a Game 6, so whoever wins tonight, if the opposite team wins, then on Sunday we'll get Game 7. And if that is the case, that means on Sunday we will get not only Game 7 of the NBA Finals, but also Father's Day and also Juneteenth. And if we get that, I ain't doing nothing. The whole day. Stephanie gonna be sick of me. You heard me? Sick of me. Not sick of me, sick of me. You know what I'm saying?
That's how Marge is right now.
But I ain't gonna say nothing on that
one. And so I guess is there a little change, or is we just gonna, just kind of gradually bring that other part into this episode? Because I see you just left it as Juneteenth, or did you forget?
Okay. We doing what we doing.
Okay.
And so, last year, this was last year's when Juneteenth became a federal holiday. And, I want to have a conversation about what is Juneteenth. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? I hear one of my nieces or nephews in the background there. um, what is it?
You must hear him through the door because the
Uh,
door closed. It's just
they
me.
they going through it. All right, it's gonna be all good though.
Oh, it's probably baby Fred. Then he's on the bed. He ain't on it.
But we just want to have a conversation around what is Juneteenth, and what just a general conversation around it. You know how we do everything is freestyle. So I mean,
Right.
Tell us what you know Juneteenth to be, and what's been your experience with it your whole life.
Well, to be honest, you know, it was when slavery ended. You know what I mean? So it's a celebration. You know what I'm saying, to the end of slavery. It was on June 19th. Don't get me on years and stuff. That's your thing. But of course, it was on June 19th, and one thing I can say is I guess I was, lucky enough for the town that I grew up in, which shout out to Lima, Ohio right now, because they actually about to throw a big celebration this coming weekend for Juneteenth. I mean, it's huge. They're going to have like 50-something vendors out there, food trucks, some African heritage. They doing some golf type stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just going to be a huge thing. So, and that brings me to what I was going to say is growing up, we used to have, like a celebration. Like you would meet at the park, you know what I mean? Like just everybody throughout the city, and we would kick it and celebrate. They would have, live performances, food, paint, whatnot. And you just kind of just celebrate it, you know what I'm saying, with the culture, you know what I'm saying? And they brought cultural things out there, you know what I mean? Like I said, like even this year, they're doing like a culture, African cultural heritage thing that they're bringing, you know what I'm saying, to it this year. So I got to say, for my small town, that's something we've always had probably until I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11. Then it kind of went away, you know what I mean? I don't know exactly the why, but I'm going to assume that, we was lucky enough to have some people that actually cared about the holiday and wanted to celebrate it ahead of that. And that's how we had it growing up. And as time go on, either people get busy or can't continue to head that type of ordeal. And so that's just what it is.
So, no, that's interesting, man. That's dope to hear because, for me, my earliest memory of Juneteenth is looking at a calendar on the wall and wondering, what's all these other random holidays? So my birthday is June 14th, and that's also Flag Day. And I remember looking at the calendar and being like, oh, my birthday's a holiday. And at this point, I'm like 10, 11, something like that. Um, and I remember, realizing that I believe September 12th is Grandparents' Day. And at just like looking through the calendar and just seeing like there's all these extra holidays. And I remember seeing Juneteenth, not knowing what it is, not knowing what it was, or anything like that. And, I can remember at different points in my life, hearing people say, hey, it's Juneteenth. But it was never anything like really brought out about it, and I can honestly say I didn't know what it meant or what it was until sometime in the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm realizing as we're having this conversation, I believe where I began to truly understand it, I believe was an episode of Blackish. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I think Blackish did an episode explaining what it is. And I think that's how I came to learn it. It was for sure within the last decade. And I feel like it was within the last 5 years. And like I said, as I'm speaking in real time, I believe it was an episode of Blackish that did an episode on it. And, one thing, I don't want to be like holier than thou or anything. One thing I do want to correct you on is you said it's the day that the slaves were free. the slaves had actually been free for over 2 years. That was the last. If you're talking, bro, you're on mute.
I wasn't saying that they was free. I just said it just ended. Like it was known date that slavery ended. I'm not gonna say necessarily free, but
Okay,
it just slavery ended.
that is what you said. Forgive me. Yeah, it was. And so, for those that may not know, slavery had been ended for over 2 years to that point, but it was just the last, set of slaves. That's when they learned that they were free. And if I'm correct, you may have been looking it up. Um, I believe that it's a little confusion on whether or not that the date was actually June 18th or June 19th, but we all just recognize June 19th. I think if you look it up, it'll say on June 18th or June 19th of 1865 is the day. I wasn't asking you to
I'll
look
look it up. Okay, yeah, no, I actually had texted my son when you had said.
Oh, I thought
you heard the baby. So yeah, I was
Sorry.
but no, I just put it in real quick, typing in Juneteenth holiday, and it's actually June 19th or June 20th.
Okay. Okay.
I knew it was that you're referring to.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, no, that's dope that you guys always had a celebration, because I've never seen or any kind of celebration regarding it until this year. My church is going to do something on June 18th, that Saturday, and then they're going to have in-person service on June 19th. It's still mostly virtual until next month, but we've been getting together once a month. That's Father's Day, Juneteenth. That'll be the in-person worship for June, and then I've seen a couple other, like there's this one town, Berkeley, Michigan, super rich area. I'm gonna leave it there. Not a whole lot of black folk in that area, but I saw that they're having. I've driven through, going to work and coming home and whatnot, and I saw that they're having a Juneteenth celebration, and I was just like, huh, okay, but it's cool to see it embraced. The good parts of it, right?
Right.
And for me, as I was realizing that I saw it on Blackish, I know Blackish is a show that is very pro black, but I know that people of all cultures and races watch that show, and I wonder how much of a role that played in kind of people recognizing what it was. Like I say, because I didn't really know about it until that show came on.
I don't think that show probably put a whole lot of weight on the recognition of it as much as it probably tried, and I appreciate for anything that would shed light on, something positive like that. But still in all, I don't think it's really recognized, like, besides within our culture, and still not heavy within our culture, because if you right now like, oh yeah, Juneteenth next weekend, they go like, huh? What you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like they off, like it's like a national holiday where everybody's off, or getting paid to. It's not like 4th of July, pretty much in the sense of how people recognize it.
Well, I'm not saying that it's already like one of the biggest major holidays that we recognize. Well, what I'm saying is that it's being talked about way more today than even 2 years ago. That's what I'm saying,
and that's true.
And I'm wondering if, like that episode, in addition to a lot of the racial reckoning that we've gone through over the last, 5 or so years, well, more so than that, over the last decade or so, how much that has played a role in it. We're seeing some good sides of it, but we're seeing some not great sides of it as well. We're seeing, I'm sure you saw the whole, like, the Walmart ice cream thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's funny. I don't know if that, like, I guess, I can see how, that could come off, the wrong way. But I don't think it was as bad as what it was, made out to be. And I mean, I guess I don't look at things in, that like it's just hard to say. Like it's more so like to me, like when I looked at it, I seen, the ice cream, I seen, the labeling of it and everything, and it was just like, okay, I don't think it was that big of a deal to, make a big fuss about it. And maybe I'm wrong for it, but to me, it just wasn't worth the attention it got.
I think that it's one of those things where, a lot of people say like, hey, they could have highlighted other brands, like Black-owned brands and things of that nature. And that's true. I think that from a business perspective, it would be highly irresponsible for them to do nothing, right? Like if you were to, we see stuff every year for Memorial Day, 4th of July, President's Day, furniture sales. The NBA has some marquee games all day on Martin Luther King Day. The NFL always has some marquee games on Thanksgiving Day. Like you figure out a way to get in where you can fit in for holidays and national events, things of that nature. So it would be irresponsible to just not acknowledge it, but maybe they could have done something a little bit better. And I don't know that the vitriol was, well, I guess it was if they pull the flavor off the shelf as quick as they put it out there. But I don't know. I didn't so much see the reactions that I saw people having about it was like, hell no, they did this. This is goofy. You know what I'm saying? They probably could have got away with just keeping it on there, but I also think that it was wise of them to say, hey, this isn't the best look. We should we'll be all right. We Walmart. We can do something else.
So it makes me ask, and I know it could be a little bit off subject, but because I seen a post where, when the ice cream came out and they took it off the shelves and whatnot, somebody said this is why it's important to have people of color in these boardroom discussions to help guide you from making mistakes like this. And
I thought you had a question.
No, I'm saying, what do you think? Do you think that's true? Do you think, that was a situation where, do you think even if they did have, people of color that was in the room of that discussion, do you think it would have kept it from making it to the shelves?
If those that are in charge listen, I don't know. It's a weird thing. Because you would have the assumption is that if there's somebody in the boardroom, or let me say it differently, just because you got somebody in the boardroom doesn't mean that they're going to say the right thing, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, you got to go home to your family that you got to provide for, things of that nature. You may not necessarily want to rock the boat. You may also be in a situation where you realize that you're there to check off a box and not necessarily your input and your intellect isn't necessarily valued in the circles that you're invited to. Sometimes your presence is. Why are you laughing at me, bro? You want me to just say it? Sometimes they just want you because you black.
I ain't that I want you to say it, but you tiptoeing pretty damn hard to just, what I'm saying? Like, and I felt like you was kind of tiptoeing in multiple ways. Like, you tiptoeing because it could be another episode, but you tiptoeing like trying to stay point without, just putting it out there. But good and well as I know that's 9 times out of 10 the scenario. You know what I'm saying? I know a company that could have cared less of what our opinion or what we said. You know, it didn't hold any weight, but the fact that we was able to produce numbers in areas they needed, you know what I'm saying, like increasing their card applicants, you know what I'm saying, all of a sudden now you have a lot that you can head my meeting if you want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I mean, I've seen it firsthand, you know what I mean? Like,
man, you out here, man. You know what? You
dry
own,
snitching.
you own point. You know what I'm saying? See, one might even say you own Target. All right, so anyway. I mean, you want me to put it out there, bro? Look, that's the Easter egg right there for y'all. You know, kind of moving back a little bit to the Juneteenth side of the conversation.
Definitely.
You know, something that I've been thinking about really over the last couple of years. Hey, sis. Something I've been thinking about over the last couple of years is that a lot of this stuff that's happened in our history, a lot of people will say, hey, somebody's going to listen to this and say, you know what, 1865? Y'all been free since 1865? Y'all been officially free since 1865? Like, America's not racist anymore. There's no racism or anything like that anymore. And, one of the things I've been thinking about, my grandmother is 83 years old. My aunt, I'm pretty sure I've talked about my aunt Sarah on here in the past. She just turned 94. When you are that old, it is likely that your grandparents may have spent part of their childhood as slaves. Your grandparents. You figure if my aunt's 94 years old, I don't know. She's my aunt by marriage, so I don't know, her whole story and who her parents were and things of that nature. But just me kind of doing some math in my head and just thinking, if her parents had her around the age of 30, that would mean that her parents were born in like 1890. And if their parents had her around the age of 30, they were born, late 60s, somewhere around that range. And I often think about the fact that, like, there are people walking on this earth or living on this earth right now that, to some degree, knew slaves, knew people that were in slavery. There are people that are walking today that know people that are Holocaust survivors, right? I think there's still a couple Holocaust survivors living to this point. I think, and so
might be a couple. I don't know, because they was pretty old when we was in school, and they was like having them visits or having the documentaries play.
Yeah, right.
So they was kind of old then.
But what I'm thinking about is that, like, I've been thinking about that part for the last couple of years, that there are people living today that knew slaves to some degree. Maybe they didn't get a chance to meet, people that actually pick cotton and things of that nature. But that's not unrealistic either. We just buried my wife's great grandfather. We just buried him, and so easily, somebody who it's not unreasonable to think that my grandparents may have known their great grandparents, meaning that they would have known slaves. My grandmother was born in Tennessee.
Well, no, I'm agreeing with you, like, because my grandmother would be 90 August 9th this year.
Man.
And well, I've always told, like, I always say that I'm a very blessed individual, because growing up, I had my great grandmother until I was 17. And the reason, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the reason I cut you off to say this was like I had my great grandmother since I was 17. She was like 93 or 94 when she passed away. You know what I mean? And I remember her vividly telling me like, hey, she knew slaves. Like her mom, you know what I'm saying? Parents were slaves. Like she's seen people had their feet cut off for trying to run and hands cut off. Like she's seen that firsthand. You know what I mean? I was thinking she was like a little far fetched, but it kind of made sense because like my grandma never really had a job, and when she did, she more was a housekeeper for an older white lady. Every job she's really ever had, she was either cleaning or cooking or taking care of her family in a sense of, you know what I'm saying, like slavery times. And that's because that's what she knew. You know what I mean? From what she watched growing up. And she shared like little stuff like that, you know. And it would be in times where like she'll be trying to teach you something, or like, you know how every now and then you want to mouth back or say certain things, and she's like, do you really understand, you know what I mean, like to what level, you know what I'm saying, you being disrespectful at, like you
Right.
have folks that done came before you, we done did this and that and the third, you know, my mother was a slave, you know what I mean, like we've been trying to overcome certain times or do certain things, and here you is just, you know, oblivious to it, just like nothing matters, or, you know, it doesn't affect you. And you know, she would lay down those different things and share little pieces, you know what I mean, in those times. So that was just one thing, you know, I could remember as a kid with talking with my great grandmother.
You know, and that's actually a little bit of a perfect segue to talk about something. I knew this would come up in today's episode, no matter what. So, you talked about like not really knowing what we're doing and what we're saying at that time. I'm switching a little bit off topic, but it's still in the general theme. So today, literally today, a friend of mine messaged me, a white friend. She listened to our episode from last week. And she got to the part where I said, "Don't go listen to this Monique clip, but listen to it later." She paused and listened to it right then and there. But so she's like, you know, she's not understanding. She got to the part where Monique called DL Hughley, and now I feel dirty using this now that I have new knowledge, so forgive me. But she got to the point where Monique called D.L. Hughley a coon, right? And yeah, she didn't really like understand like what it meant, but she was like, "Hey, like if I were to say, uh, like she's called raccoons a coon for short, but she's like super
Right.
sheltered, had zero idea of the racial slur behind it or anything like that." And then she ended up, I was saying that like I wouldn't say it because it'd be awkward for you to say it as a white person. And based, like, I've never Googled the word, I've heard it used. And in the context that I've heard it used, it's always been um, pretty similar to like an Uncle Tom. Um, but I've also heard it used as like you just acting a fool. Like, man, you out here cooning right now. Like I've heard people say that, right?
Yeah.
And she Googled it. She was like, she messaged me back like, you should just told me to Google it. Like, this is terrible. Why would black people say this ever? And I'm just like, huh? And so she sends me the link. I didn't get a chance to look at it because I was in the middle of my workday. But I was like, I mean, it's just kind of a weird thing to say. I don't think it's that bad of a thing to say. And so I ended up just happen to going into, one of the retail stores I support, where I've got a great relationship with one of the older black gentlemen that works at the store. And I had him in private. I was like, listen, let me ask you something a little personal. Like, what do you think the term the term coon means? And he starts explaining it, and it's nowhere near, like, he has a different understanding of what I have of it. And I'm thinking like I'm learning. I'm like, oh man, yeah, that's different. All right, this is a bad thing to say. But then I go and I look at the link that she sends me that details the history of the term, and it is horrible. Like I said, I feel dirty saying it and using it. And I had zero idea. And I just think about like in the context that I've heard it used, I don't think that anyone truly knows. Anyone who uses it truly knows. Like even in the context that Monique used it in that segment is not like what it meant. And she was just like, and so this friend again, she's white, and she's like, why would black people be using this term in any setting at all? And it made, and like now that when I made time to get home and I read through it, I'm just like, yo, like she's right. Like, why are we doing this? And so I think about that with like the Juneteenth. Like, I didn't really know what it meant or what it was about until the last, like I said, 5 or so years. And it's just scary to think that how people can say things and do things and use things with a lack of real knowledge behind it. Am I making sense? You muted again, bro. No.
You hear me?
There we go.
All right, so yeah, it makes sense. And I think sometimes we give people a little more credit because most of them know. You know what I mean? Like they know it's just not that they want to respect it, you know what I mean, or want to acknowledge, what I'm saying, the wrongness in it. Because for instance, there's which I'm pretty sure every city and state has them, but we have this page called 419 News Now. It's for Lima, Ohio area.
Okay.
And it's anything. Like there's a lady on there. I don't know how she do it or what, but she basically reports the scanner all day long. Shooting here, wreck here, breaking and entering here. I don't know. If you ever listen to a scanner, it just sounds like a bunch of static and mumbling. I don't know how she's getting it, how she got this clear, understanding. Maybe she was in law enforcement, whatever. But someone shared the Juneteenth celebration that's getting ready to go down this coming weekend in Lima. And there's a lady that goes, clear as day on the post. Oh, no. For what?
Wow.
I mean, just clear as day. And you know what I'm saying? You have people of all color coming on there and saying, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way or whatnot. And, why are you being racist? Or, one was a classmate of mine and, she just killed her with kindness and told her like, hey, you should bring your family out because we got stuff for all walks of life. You should come check it out. It's going to be a great event this weekend. And hopefully you can find something you enjoy out of it. And to me, that was like the best you could have did, in that situation. But to me, it also shows a lot of them know, a lot of them understand, they just don't want to. They don't, and we give them too much credit behind, the fact that maybe because we didn't know or because it wasn't shared down with us, I think we give them a lot more credit. Now, if they're our age, I can truly see them probably not knowing or not understanding certain situations. But there's an age gap that's like right above us and beyond. Oh, they know. They clearly know what they're doing and saying.
So continue with your point. The same friend, she was just telling me, she lives in Ohio, and she was telling me that she asked her husband, like, what does he know? And her husband was like, yeah, like this is like, that's like a terrible thing to use. And he's also a white man. He's like, I've always known this to be like a very horrible thing to say and to do. And then so he begins to tell her, and she shares the story with me, how in Kent County, every year there's a Kent County fair. And part of the Kent County Fair, or maybe this used to happen, I don't know, but part of the Kent County Fair would be a raccoon hunt. and
Wow.
they would get T-shirt. Yeah, yeah. They would get T-shirts that said Kent Coon Hunting, and a lot of people would buy the T-shirts, no intention of raccoon hunting. They would just get Kent
Right.
Coon Hunting, and just it was a way
Wear it around.
to be outwardly racist.
Yeah. And you see it more times than not, and I think we turn a blind eye because we feel like, oh, that's not deep rooted in hate, or that's not coming from that background, because we try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But I think the other part is it also depends on the environment and the area you grow up in. You know what I'm saying, on how it affects you or how much you know what I mean? Like that whole thing, because some things are truly taught and shared through families and generations, as to others is not. And then sometimes it may come from when you live in a certain area or place. Like, for instance, I noticed being in city schools, my friends were more culturally diverse, what I'm saying, white and black friends, than outer city limit schools. You know what I mean? And it kind of brings that same tension, what I'm saying, between the two parties of just how you grew up, because they don't grow up around as many, our history or stuff isn't shared, as like, how like black people say, hey, have you had that talk with your kid about growing up black? That on the other side of the coin, you don't have that talk of, hey, look, you're going to be amongst other people that's not just like you. These are some things that you should refrain from doing or saying, because no one feels that there's a need, to refrain or share that information with their kids, because they don't feel like nothing will happen to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's so funny how you just like keep figuring out a way to bring out some of the thoughts that I've been having, literally today. So the gentleman that I talked about, the older gentleman that I mentioned earlier. So he and I were just talking about a lot of stuff, because he's about 20 years older than me, and he was telling me how when he was a kid, the city of Detroit was like probably 70%, 60 to 70% black, and the other portion of Detroit was mostly white. Yeah, obviously some other races are sprinkled in, but you probably had a 65-35 black white split. And by the time that when I was in school, I can remember I graduated high school with when I graduated high school, there were two white kids in my high school, and both kids, they were siblings, they were brother and sister, and they were adopted. So had they not been adopted and been in my community, it would have been zero white children in my school. And like I was having this conversation with someone that I could not turn on the TV, and I would, if I didn't turn on the TV, or depending on what type of shows that I chose to watch on TV, I could go a full day without seeing white people, no problem. Like Detroit was that black. I like it was a common thing for me to go weeks and months without seeing white people. Our police officers were black. Our teachers at school were black. Everybody that lived on my street was black. Like it was a common thing for me to not see white people. And then Detroit is so big of a city, it was a common thing for me to go weeks and months without walking outside of the city of Detroit. If I didn't need to go to the mall, I wasn't leaving Detroit. And those two malls were on the two malls that I would go to would be on the literal outskirts of the city, like the literal outskirts of the city. Um, so I mean, it was just like there was nothing but black people, and there was no reason to leave the city. You know, if you stepped outside the city, sure, you see some of everybody else. And
Right.
I make that point to say that I often wonder. I wonder so much these days if that was like, how do I want to put this? It's common today for white people to live and work in areas to where they don't see black people, right?
It's
Because
always
maybe
been that common.
exactly, right? And you know, because of that, there's so many people that are just simply just ignorant to black issues because they just don't see it around them. You assume that your paradigm is the world, and I hope I'm making sense. I feel like my thoughts are all over the place. Um, you always think that your paradigm is the real world, and it never is. Your paradigm is just your paradigm, and so
Well, I think that has a lot to do with, like they say, perspective is your reality.
yep,
You know what I'm saying? So when, I say, because I hear it a lot of times, the one thing that gets me is, you know, you see a situation where guy gets pulled over, black, and he has an issue or altercation with the police. And the number one thing people want to say is, well, he just complied or just listened, he wouldn't have that issue.
mm-hmm.
But that's because their perspective is, and they've never had the issue of having a issue of, no matter what I do, I'm still going to have an issue today. There's nothing, I can do everything they tell me to do. I can comply to the fullest. And today I'm still going to have an issue with this officer. Because in my, reality, with my perspective is they had it out for me. Like, for whatever reason, whatever their past is, they're going to still find a way to make an issue. And I'm not saying that's all cops. I'm not saying that's all pullover scenarios. But
Right.
there are situations where people feel like the answer is just comply, just listen. But they don't understand that no matter how much you comply or listen, you are still going to have a problem. And everybody's going to look at it as you were the issue when you may have did everything right.
I need to say this, that the only conversation that you and I have had before the podcast today is I sent you a video on Facebook wholly unrelated to anything to do with this episode today. And I bring that little snippet in there because once again you have given me the perfect topic, the perfect segue into talk about something else that's on my mind. You, my brother, are in your bag today, and you don't even know. And I just want to go ahead and give you that.
I'm sweating in this bag, so I don't want to stay in it.
So, you talked about
podcast fan.
you talked about the about the police and the perspective of police. As I mentioned earlier, the gentleman I was speaking with earlier today, Detroit was 65-35 split between white and black roughly when he was a kid. And by the time that I was born and I was a kid, it was like a 90-10 split. Black, 90% black, right? I do know that one of the things that happened to Detroit is that in the 40s and 50s and 60s, a lot of people migrated from the South to the North. And a lot of them came up here to Detroit where the auto industry was. I do know that as more black people came up and came into Detroit, white people migrated out of Detroit. And, to really kind of crystallize that for me, he was telling me today that, when he was a kid, you really didn't want to go outside of Detroit. You was gonna have some trouble with the police if you were black and you stepped outside of the city. And he was saying, like, you don't want to go Southfield, Westland, nowhere. And I'm telling you, Southfield is the literal border of Detroit. Like, it's right off 8 Mile. Y'all seen the movie 8 Mile? It's right off 8 Mile. It's literally right there. You couldn't cross the border with the trouble. And he was telling me how he got pulled over. He had a red Corvette at this time in his life. And he's telling me, he was like, I got pulled over, didn't do nothing wrong. He asked the officer, hey, what's up? What's going on with it? And he said that they got a report that a black man in a red Corvette did a smash and grab.
Sure. That adds up. Sure.
So, first off, and for clarity,
it looked like that black man makes more money than he did sitting in that police cruiser, and he was mad. So, how the hell?
Wait. Let me make sure I can paint the perspective for those that may not know. The smash and grab is you drive your vehicle through the glass window, you smash it through, and then you grab stuff and drive out. Number one, who would do that with a Corvette? Number two, wouldn't there be some evidence of some damage?
And number three, I'ma say it like Shannon Sharp would. Ain't no black person finna drive no damn car into anything. Matter of fact, I just seen a video today. It was a TikTok or something. And it was Little Bronny, and you can hear LeBron in the background. And Little Bronny shoots the ball, and he says, shorty. It hits the front of the rim and bounces and hit the Maybach. The very next thing you hear, because if you watch the video, Little Bronny could have clearly grabbed the ball from hitting the Maybach. But he didn't. And you hear LeBron say, yo, what the fuck? And the caption to that video or TikTok or whatever says, hey, yo, LeBron like every other black dad. There's no way.
So, going back to the gentleman that I talked with earlier. So, that really, him telling me that story, he told me another story, some other stuff that happened to him. And for me, it really crystallized what it was like. Another person I've been having a discussion with, gas prices high as hell right now. And, a lot of the United States, but, is like this, but really in Detroit, there's no real public transportation. And one thing about, when I was a kid, man, and Marge can tell you, buses everywhere. Like, you could literally navigate anywhere you wanted to go throughout the city and the surrounding suburbs and back for $3.50. The bus ticket was $1.50. It was an extra 25 cents to get a transfer, and on that transfer, you could get a double. You could ride 3 buses for $1.75 if you absolutely needed it. Do it on the way there, do it on the way home. That's $3.50. You multiply that by 5, that's $17.50 a week. That sounds right to me, right? And just thinking like how public transportation was really out there, and something happened, over the last 10 years, over the last 16 or 17 years, where there's just less and less of it available. And I mean, if you got to catch the bus now in Detroit, you might be waiting an hour. before your first bus come through. And hopefully, if you got a transfer, hopefully, you won't have to wait
You
too
don't
long
miss
at
it,
your
huh?
second stop. I mean, it used to literally be like my first year going to high school. I went to a school downtown, Cass Tech, and I would literally walk 2.5 blocks down the road to the bus stop, and the bus was hitting that stop every 7 minutes. If I just so happened to miss the bus at 6:15, there was another one coming at 6:22. Maybe it ran a little late. Maybe it was a little snow on the ground. It didn't get there to 6:23. Whoops, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Um, but I'm going way off topic. But what I'm saying is, going back to what he was saying, is that not only was it not a good idea to go outside the city, you didn't have a reason to go outside the city. If you wanted, fun life, we had downtown. We had, theaters and things of that nature downtown. We had There was a drive-in somewhere in the city. I remember going to a drive-in theater as a kid all the time. I don't remember where it was. I should call my mom and ask her about that. There was local grocery stores all over the place. There was um, doctor's office. The doctor, my pediatrician, I could walk to my pediatrician office, and we would when I was a kid. If we lived during the times that we lived in that neighborhood. But what I'm saying is that Detroit really kind of became isolated, and then so as the white people moved out, something I talk about now is that there's not really any grocery stores in Detroit, not to the degree that it was. Now, pretty much every Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, Dollar General used to be a grocery store. Now it's a dollar store. You used to be able to get fresh greens and fresh vegetables and fresh fruit and things of that nature. Now you can get frozen banquet meals. You know,
That's
um,
getting ready to change soon.
well, what I'm saying is that it's really changed. Um, as white people moved out, the auto industry, all of the auto plants are now in the suburbs. Um, the interstate highways, they cut right through the middle of the cities, which also plays a part. That's also a totally different episode. But like, I don't really mean to make this an episode about Detroit. We're talking about Juneteenth, but I think that the point that I was originally trying to get to is that people think that slavery ended and then racism was over, and it's not. It just became different. Some of
Well, it's
it,
different, and some of it is I think we've made a great stride towards. I don't want to say, stopping it, but in like 10 years, it's not going to be to the level it is. And 20 years ago, it was way worse than what it was. What it is now. So we're constantly making those strides. I don't think it'll ever stop, though. You know what I mean? I think it's going to always be kind of what it is.
I think it's. I think it. I think it can get to a point where it can die. I think it can get to a point where it can die, and we won't live to see it.
I I think I see where you're going with that, because I think with the mixing of the race so much, you know what I'm saying? I think that's where it dies at.
No,
And I think,
when you say mixing, are you talking about like interracial children or people?
well, just interracial families, like not
All
just
right,
children, but
I'm gonna
interracial
disagree with you there.
families, people.
I'm gonna disagree with you there. And you and I had this conversation in private a week or so ago. But like, yeah, what I'm about to say.
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't remember talking about this.
But we had talked about how like there's some corny black dudes out here.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
so y'all know I was on Unapologetically Black about a month or so ago, and I'm actually headed back there real soon. Maybe tomorrow. Hey, Brittany, you need to send me that invite.
Yeah, he gotta get on his calendar. He don't know.
Listen, where am I at? Oh, I was telling you the story about how we were in Vegas, and I shared the story on Unapologetically Black. So if you're listening, you may have heard me share this story before. But I was in Vegas for work a few years back. I'm there with my coworkers. I'm not there with my family. We're hanging out at the hotel in Vegas. We see some beautiful looking women, gorgeous looking women. Now, for those of you that don't know me that you're listening, first off, thank you. But also, I'm a black man. Obviously, I'm saying obviously, if you're only listening, you're not watching, you may not know that based off how my voice is. But I'm a black man who's married to a white woman, and this, we're in Vegas and we're hanging out, and we see these beautiful women. These women just so happen to be black, and I say, man, hey, look right there. It's like all of them. They fine, right? And the one guy who is mixed, he's half black and half white. He says, "Oh man, I ain't looking at them. They black." And I was thrown off. Like, wait, what? Like, you're black. And for me, listen, you're laughing, but see, for me and from my experience, anyone who I've ever known to be multiracial, they always claim if they're multiracial and if they're biracial, I should say, and half of them is white. In my experience, biracial people have always more so identified with the color side of their nationality. And so this was weird for me to see a guy who is biracial, who looks more black than he does white, to be like, "Oh, I ain't black. I'm not interested in black women." I remember he said, "If it ain't snowing, I ain't going." And like, it just threw me off. And then in subsequent years is when I really begin to see that there's a lot of black dudes that really spend their time, bashing black women and then elevating white women in the process. We haven't talked about it. This is kind of like smut material. I don't get into that anyway. But like this whole like Michael B. Jordan and Lori Harvey breakup. I saw a post before you and I got on here. It was a picture of Michael B. Jordan in front of a white woman with a bikini. And they're like, "Oh, look what Lori made him do." And I'm just like, what? What is this? I saw another post last week. It said, when Michael B. Jordan marries a white woman, make sure y'all say thank you. And I say all that to say is that being interracial doesn't make or mingling races won't necessarily stop racism, because there are some black people that hate black people. There's some real life Uncle Ruckuses out there. If y'all don't know who Uncle Ruckus is, don't waste your time. So that's why I disagree with you that mixing races won't solve anything. What it really comes down to is people understanding. Like, we've got to get to a point where we are comfortable telling the ugly truth of this country, right? Hey, white people were really racist, and then slavery ended, and our system figured out new ways to be racism through redlining, through um, through mandatory sentencing, through all of the very ways that we've been racist. And racism didn't end on June 19th or June 20th of 1865.
Slavery did. Well, officially.
Yeah. Pre-modern slavery. So I think I figured out a way to get out every thought that I had. I think it was more than a Juneteenth conversation. It was more so about really understanding that while we've come a long way, slavery ended, pre-modern slavery ended, 160-ish years ago. But there's people. Oh, and that was the thing I wanted to say earlier, is that if we know people or we've met people that know that knew slaves, that means that there's other people here that knew people that owned slaves.
Facts.
And what that means is that, and going back to your point about like where I was, or rather my point, where I was saying that I think we can get to the point where we can slowly but surely end racism, is that you're going to have people that have been taught racism and racist thoughts even today. Even now in 2022, you have people that are belligerently racist, and they are that way because of what they were taught. And it goes back and back and back to well before 1865. Although we're talking about over 160 years, it's not really that much time when you think about how long people can live.
So I'm going to ask this, and this is just out of pure curiosity. Do you believe racism could be caused by something other than being taught in the home? Or shared, or however all the ways you just said that, racism exists because of. Do you feel like if you take those things away, that some people could be racist for any other reasons?
No. However, when I say racism is taught, I don't think that means that people are sitting their kids down and be like, let me tell you about these kind of people. I think it's in your actions. I think it's in it's in the way that you live your life. It's in the way that you choose to walk, you choose to talk.
If somebody does something negative towards you, okay, not gonna say towards you. If somebody has something negative done towards them, could that be a cause to hate a race, or no?
People are simple, and people are reductive. So while someone may say, you did this thing to me, the answer to your question is no. But okay, so here's an example. Okay, this is a real life story. I may have shared this on the pod before, but I remember being really young, maybe 5, and my mom and my stepfather were trying to get a car. And we were riding in the car. It was my mom, my stepfather, my sister, and myself. We were riding in the car with my stepfather's sister and her husband, driving around trying to get a car. I realized now that I'm an adult that they were just getting declined left and right because of bad credit. But I remember we were at the dealership. We were out in the car. My stepfather, kind of walked up, said something quiet, couldn't hear him talk, went to the salesperson. Salesperson walked away, comes back a minute or so later, says, "I'm sorry, folks, we're not going to be able to do anything today." Salesperson was white. My stepfather was black. Came back in the car. And I remember I asked, "What happened?" And I don't remember exactly, but I remember I was asking, it was just weird because whenever we had gone to do that, it always took a very long time. And we were there obnoxiously short. And I remember my stepfather said, "It's because we black, man." And I share that story to say that when he said that, it painted the picture in my head that white people were mean to us because we're black. That I'm young. I don't know anything about credit. I don't know anything about anything at this point. And for a short time period, it made me, and I'm young, it made me, I believe, at least moderately or partially racist against white people because they were doing something wrong to me. I grew out of that very quickly, very quickly. And I actually mostly forgot about that until sometime when I was 19-ish. I shared it for an essay in college. And that was, to my memory, the only conversation that could have been, or that's the only thing that could have ever happened that could have taught me racism. No one ever sat me down and said white people are bad and this is why, right? Nobody ever sat me down and said, this is the way that you need to live your life or anything like that. Like, it just didn't happen, right? So that one little moment when I was super young and impressionable planted something, and it must have just been other life experience otherwise. I remember I had a teacher in first grade that was a white lady, and she was super nice to me, things of that nature. So I think that lived experience made it otherwise. But the point that I'm making is that it's not going to be that like a black person said something or a black person did something and now I hate all black people. It's directly or indirectly something was poured into you, and that one connecting link made you outwardly realize, I don't like that. Does that make sense?
So, yeah. So, my question: you was going to school at Cass. You took the bus. So let's say this one day you took the bus to school. You took it home. Now, within walking those 2 blocks from home, it's 3 white boys, maybe 4. One of them asks you, "Hey man, you got a pen real quick I can use?" You say, "Yeah, no problem." So you go to put your hand in your pocket. Soon as you go put your hand in your pocket, you get snuffed from behind. Somebody just, now there's 4 white boys beat the dog crap out of you for no reason. You have no clue who they are, never seen them a day in your life, know their names, don't know where they live. You get up and you walk home and you just got your ass whooped by four cats. how would you feel? Is
I
it
think
racism? Is it a race hate crime? Is it I hate all white people? Where you going?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question to. Because as I said in high school, wasn't no white people around there. So
You ain't shit.
me seeing 4 white kids on the block wasn't gonna happen at all.
Well,
But
that looked crazy in the first place.
but so to your question, and to answer your question to the best of my ability, I'm going to say no. And the reason why I'm going to say no is because at that point, I'm living with my mother and my grandmother and my sister, and then visiting my father every other weekend. None of them would have said, them being white would have been the description that we would have given to the police. It wouldn't have been like, these white people crazy, racist. That's not something that would have come out of their mouths. I don't believe. There's no reason for me to believe that because they've never said in the rest of my 36 years of living, they've never said anything remotely like that. My stepfather was dead at that point. So if this would have happened, I guess to your point, that situation at the car dealership happened, I was 5 or 6. So if I'm 6 years old and some white kids in the school jump me, because there was white kids at the elementary school I went to. If I'm 6 years old and the white kids there jump me, maybe something is planted then because of what my stepfather initially brought out. Maybe.
Well, I'm only asking because I've known of scenarios where, for no reason, I know for a fact that the 4 black kids didn't know the one white kid or adult, didn't matter, from a can of paint. And just literally just beat his ass. I mean, dude, I don't even know where the dude or, you know what I'm saying, could have been walking from or to. Like literally just driving down the street, look over. Damn, why that happened? You know them, but you owe them? I don't even know who they are, where they come from, what their name is. Dude sitting here bloody, beaten, you know what I'm saying? And it's just a random assault. So that's what made me ask you. That was the only reason I had, you know what I'm saying, went into that, because I've seen scenarios like that growing up for no reason. You know, I know a group of kids that used to just go out and fight crackheads for no reason. Like just literally like, we're bored. Let's hop in the car, find a crackhead and just jump them. Well, not every person was a crackhead. You know what I mean? You just don't know because they're walking down the street that, you know what I mean? If they ain't doing those suspect signs that just says, okay, yeah, it may not be crack, but it's something. You know what I mean? You got an issue. Well, just put them in that category. But they used to just go around. And I mean, yeah, I'm saying go around and beat up crackheads, but what I'm saying is on the other end, for a normal white guy who's not a crackhead that just got beat up, they don't know why. They don't know that they were just leaving out the house to go beat up crackheads or they were just bored kids. They just know 4 black men jumped.
So, again, I would say that, like, if that's something that's planted into your head, all right, I think about it like this. You and me worked in the cell phone business a long time. I worked in it longer than you. Me and you both know that the best Androids smoke the best iPhones. And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, thank you. But you and I both know that. Am I right?
Oh, 100%. But that was perfect. Like, however you just did, that was perfect.
But the point that I'm making is that somebody who says, and I'm being like as reductive as possible to something that just doesn't matter in life. Which phone do you use, right? But someone who says like iPhones or Androids suck, that's why I like iPhones, right? You start saying your your battery died on your Android. Them Androids don't last. That's why you need to get you an iPhone, right? And it's just like if you believe something already, something that brings that out that can highlight to your point, it just becomes like magnified for you. And that's why I say like the racism is taught. It doesn't mean that you're gonna be sat down to say like you need to hate black people and things of that nature, but your actions as the influence into a child's life is going to indicate what a person thinks, what a person feels, what a person believes. So
I can agree with you on that.
So as we continue to have conversations and we talk to each other about real life issues and people that get to know each other, we understand that's how racism breaks. And as society becomes more of a melting pot, a lot of those small hatreds, because I believe no one is born truly hating a person or anything like that. This stuff is just, it marinates over time. You get you a slab of ribs, if you just toss your chicken, you toss the ribs in the marinade real quick, you ain't gonna do nothing. You let it sit in that John for 24 hours, you can taste the flavor, right? And that's what I'm saying. So as that stuff marinates and it sits in a person's soul, that's what makes it come out, and that's what makes it harder to break. And so, like I said, racism did not end on June 19th or 20th of 1865, but we can get to a point where it will end. And I say that not to sound hopeless, that if you're alive and you're listening to this podcast right now, you're probably not going to see a complete end of racism in your lifetime. But we can work towards it. We can make it better for the next generation, just like the previous generation made it better for us. We continue to work, continue to grow with each other, continue to learn each other, continue to love each other. And why are you looking at me crazy? Did I say something weird?
Yeah, the previous generation made it easier for us. I don't know about easy.
I said easier.
Listen,
I didn't say easy.
Easier, easiest. Hey, you know what I'm saying?
Listen, I'm married to a white woman. When my grandmother was a child, when my mother was a child, that wasn't a realistic opportunity. Loving versus Virginia was 62 or 67? 67? 68? I don't know. But those that fought, those that had those conversations, those that ingratiated themselves into those spaces made it easier for us. Easier. But it's a continuous fight. I mean, we're breaking down hundreds of years of hate and anger and things of that nature. It's gonna take some time, but we can do it. So,
most definitely.
If you're new to the show, thank you. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, even if you are listening on an iPhone or Spotify. If you like what we do, follow us on social media. What's Happening is all of our platforms. Thank you if you're watching us live. We're streaming right now on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. So thank you for joining with us wherever you may be. We will be back next week with another episode. We would love for you guys to come back and check us out again. And you can find us on all of your podcast streaming apps to listen to our entire archive. And that's all I got, bro.
So I'm gonna ask, for anybody that's listening, anybody that make it all the way through this episode, do me one favor this week, if you can, see what your community or local community is holding for Juneteenth, and go be a part of it. See what it's about. Mingle, network. You know what I mean? Grow and love one another, and do something different this weekend that maybe can help bridge this gap that we talked about. That's number one. Number two, for all of our new listeners, or for those that's listening to us live, me and Bradley were talking and discussing, and we think we're going to try to hit you with a little flavor every Saturday. We're going to rerun some of those episodes that we've got in the archives that's sitting on Spotify that you may not have a chance to listen to. So first episode we're going to drop this Saturday. So check us out on Saturday for, a new episode, you know what I'm saying? Or an old episode if you, been rocking with us since day one, you know what I mean? We appreciate all our day one. So, most definitely, thank you. Appreciate y'all. Love the support. Keep supporting us. And if you ain't hip, get ready to, catch us on Saturdays in y'all free time. So we're going to drop y'all something on Saturdays, and we're going to still bring y'all something hot on Monday nights live, and we're going to drop it on Wednesday for those who don't join us live. It's a little too late. All right? That's all I got. Peace.